fizzle in. We got a few things to get into today, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back into Crushing It here. I am your host, as always, Miles Smith. It is great to be with everybody today. Again, we're going to let it breathe for a second. But we got some stuff to talk about today, some stuff that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, headliner, I think the Broncos offense is going to be damn good next season, and I'll give you some reasons why, because the last time the Broncos had a legit wide receiver trio and at least a decent running back, they did some good stuff on the offensive side of the ball. I think the Broncos are going to be really, really good on offense, and I'll give you a parallel, show you why, and then I will explain myself. Also coming in, we'll kind of touch here on a little bit of the free agent market, still with tight end, that is still in need of the Broncos. And with that being said, we are the number 5 fastest growing Broncos podcast on YouTube. So if you want to help me become number 1, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, let's get into everything. So we are going to start today's episode talking about the 2025 Broncos. Let me go ahead and switch layout right here. So we are going to start with the 2025 Denver Broncos because I want to give you a baseline. Because 24 and 25 should be the 2 worst years for the Denver Broncos, like ever under Bo Nix, at least offensively. I know it looks shaky these last couple of seasons, but while there is still room for improvement, there was some improvement. But again, I'm gonna give you some comparison numbers here, because then we're gonna talk about what Jaylen Waddle brings to this. Cortland Sutton last year, 1,000 yards. I believe that's back-to-back for him. 7 touchdowns as well. So, good year for the vet. Nothing too crazy, but of course, you love it. You love getting quad digits there, 1,000 yards. Troy Franklin had a big year 2 jump, okay? And I just want to emphasize that. This is going to spoil a little bit of later in the episode, but I want to pull up Troy Franklin as well to help paint the picture of what I think that could happen here for the Broncos. And you know what? Maybe Franklin takes a big year 3 jump as well. I think he's going to be wide receiver 3 in something like 11 personnel. But just year 1 to year 2 was crazy. All right, double the targets damn near. Almost triple the catches, not quite, but more, just about triple the yards. Another 1.5 yards per catch, 4 more touchdowns on the season, so triple the touchdowns for Troy Franklin. And then another big thing as well, if we can go find these numbers here, big reduction in drop percentage. Even if he did technically have more drops, it was on double the targets. So his drop percentage, huge drop, 5.7 to 3.8. That is big for Franklin. If he keeps working on the hands, Franklin's going to be really, really good. I really liked what we saw from him in 2025. All right, we are going to go back and we are going to get off of that tab. Evan Ingram, not great. Was the 3rd leading receiver for the Broncos. Only scored 1 touchdown as well. And then you had Pat Bryant, 378. He could factor into what I'm kind of going to get into here. And then you got Harvey, Mims, Troutman exists, I guess. you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to peel us back to the 2014 Denver Broncos for a minute, all right? And let's get familiar with these guys again, because we know when we love these guys. Peyton Manning, 597 attempts that season, completed 66.2% of his passes. A lot more efficiency than Bo, obviously, but again, you got to remember here, Bo had the most passing attempts in the league, if I can actually find that box there. Less completion percentage than you'd like. Not nearly as efficient, but Bo and Peyton aren't the same quarterback. What am I getting at? Let's look at these receivers. All right. DT, 1,600 yards. Sanders, 1,400 yards, and you had a combined 20 touchdowns between them. Julius Thomas, kind of on the back end of like his dominance. He had the one super good year in 2013, goes for 489, still scored 12 touchdowns. Wes Welker, not the most productive year from him either, but as a wide receiver 3, still went for a pretty good year, 464, 2 touchdowns. Not quite the same Wes Welker, only played 14 games. It was a 16-game season, so only so far up that his yards could have gone. Now let's talk about rushing numbers here real quick. You want to talk about rushing numbers? In total, this team rushed for 1,785 yards. Let's go pull up our 2025 friends real quick. They actually went for more. They went for 2018. Of course, you do got to throw the other game, and I don't believe that they were as efficient there. 4.4, 4.0. So, okay. So some aspects of the 25, and I promise this is going to make sense, okay? We're not only digging back a decade for no reason. We're going to start drawing some parallels here, all right? What is something that this 2014 team had that the 2025 team didn't? That is a game breaker. That is a game breaker, and that's where we're going to kind of insert Jaylen Waddle here, all right? We are going to pop back to the regular thinger mabobber. How you doing today, Bok Choi? Appreciate you popping in. Appreciate you popping in. We are having a good time. We are having a good time so far. But what I want people to realize is that having a Jaylen Waddle, and I emphasized this during yesterday's live stream, okay? I made a point of this in yesterday's live stream. But Jaylen Waddle is going to do so much for this Broncos offense. And not even in the form of him just being another weapon, and a damn good one, might I add, for Bo Nix. But it's what he is going to do for everybody else on this roster, because he is going, firstly, he's going to pull attention off of Courtland Sutton, and that's huge. I don't know how much more production you're realistically going to get from Courtland Sutton, but I could certainly see him going for, give or take here, I mean, let's really think about this, 1,100, maybe 1,200 yards. Courtland Sutton's your DT archetype. Is he as good as DT? No, he's not as fast, but he's big, makes the physical catches, and he is just a jump ball machine, all right? Let's keep that in mind. You never really refound that Emmanuel Sanders archetype, the 5'10 fast guy that you can kind of, the defenses really have to account for. And I think that was something big. I don't think defenses respected Troy Franklin like that this year. I don't think they respect him like that anyways right now, because he's not a big middle of the field guy. I think just the tiniest fraction of his production came from the middle of the field. I can't get all the super specific numbers because I don't have I don't have all the fancy paid subscriptions that you would need for stuff like that. But what I am saying though is that Jaylen Waddle is essential, and again, to make the point, Sutton is basically like DT light, okay? Like I said, not as fast, but he does make the physical catches. You are basically getting Emmanuel Sanders plus out of Jaylen Waddle, and the reason that I towed back to the 2014 Broncos was to make that point exactly, because we have seen that with good quarterback play and a good running game, I mean things happen. And we know that, but I think us Broncos fans have been really waiting to legitimately see that. And you know, not all of us, not everyone in Broncos country remembers watching that season. I don't fully remember. I remember just some of the highlights, and I remember losing to the Colts in the divisional round, which sucked. But the things on offense can happen, is what I'm getting at. And the Broncos are now set up with Jaylen Waddle to free up everybody else on the offense, and those impacts will ripple throughout the entirety of this offense. And I think that's something else that people need to understand. You're not just getting the speedster that can move in space, you're getting a guy with gravity, because of what teams know he brings to the table. That's going to free up Sutton. That's going to free up Troy Franklin, who's probably going to be your wide receiver 3, barring an absolute catastrophe. Pat Bryant when he's on the field. Marvin Mims on the field with Jaylen Waddle is going to be straight up unfair, because those are your two speed guys, and teams are really going to have to account for both of those guys deep. Denver's not going to be facing as many stacked boxes with Jaylen Waddle, because Denver has a legitimate field stretcher now, which should help free up the running game a little bit. And really think about this, okay? You think about how bad the second half of the season was on the ground for Denver, and I don't think that the totals we alluded to told the whole story, because RJ Harvey had nearly as many carries as J.K. Dobbins, 3.7 per pop. And I don't know if that was just a failure on the offensive line, or on RJ Harvey. I think there's some blame to go around. And say what you will about J.K. Dobbins, obviously he has his injury history. I said in yesterday's show that I've kind of cooled off on that. Like, I'm not as mad. I'm just like, okay, Like I hope there's a better, plan for insurance there. 100%. But what I really want to make this known here that Jaylen, just the threat of Jaylen Waddle should really free up this running game, not just for J.K. Dobbins, although it's going to really, really help J.K., but R.J. Harvey. Harvey shouldn't have nearly as bad of a time running like inside of the box or trying to get around, because the threat of Jaylen Waddle is going to pull a man out of the box. And again, there's no telling how Davis Webb is going to really go about calling his plays, because we've only seen it once, and it was in a preseason game. There is no accurate telling here. But Jaylen, just the threat of the missile that is Jaylen Waddle is going to do huge things for this Broncos offense, and we could potentially. All right, and I want this to be thought about here as I say it, no matter who's watching or how many's watching. What I want you to think about now is you've gotten a proven guy that can go out, stretch the field, make some of the tough catches, and make guys miss. Jaylen Waddle is Emmanuel Sanders plus, where Sutton is kind of DT minus, if that makes sense, or Demaryius Thomas light, if that makes sense. I'm really excited to see how this goes down. And this is going to affect Bo as well. One of the biggest problems for the Broncos, it feels like over the past couple of seasons, is that there has just been no separation for Bo throwing to the receivers. Every now and again, you'll see a wide open window pop open, sure. Jaylen Waddle is going to bring separation. I think Jaylen Waddle could be in for a big year. I think that's going to have, or help Sutton have a bigger year. I think that's going to help Troy take some steps. I think he can learn a thing or two. Sutton's kind of getting to the back end of his career as well. So giving Troy Franklin a little more time in the oven, per se, I don't think is going to be the worst thing in the world. Could help free up Evan Ingram as well. That's something I didn't even mention. Is the threat of that could help free up Evan Ingram. Jaylen Waddle getting plugged in as a chess piece can really, really help everybody on this offense. Nix will have a guy that he can go to over the middle. Jaylen Waddle did a lot of his work over the middle last season. None of the Broncos receivers, like none of their production, none of that was more than 13% for each guy's production. The Broncos have not had a legit over the middle threat at all. Whether it is at that tight end position or whether or not it is at the receiver position. Jaylen Waddle getting plugged into this is going to be absolutely massive for the Broncos offense, and it's really, really, really going to free a lot of things up. Now, and I do wrap around to tight end, because I know that we all want to see Ingram year, well, maybe not everyone. I personally want to see Ingram year 2, especially now with Jaylen Waddle here. Obviously, Denver brought back the majority of their tight ends. I think the only guy that they did not bring back was Lucas Kroll. I don't think they tendered him, but Troutman's back. Like I said, I vehemently disagree with that signing. Even if he is a glue guy, how much glue do you need in the machine before it starts getting gunked up? And then you get Adkins back. I don't think that's the end of the world either. I'm actually pretty all right with Adkins. And then there's probably one other guy that I can't really think of. Maybe they did bring Kroll back. I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is that tight end is still a pretty well understood need for the Denver Broncos. And there are some options. One of those options is not as likely, but this is really going to be a nice transition kind of into the B block here, where we talk about some of the tight ends that are still on the market, what they offer, and what they could do for Denver. And I know that we're really past the free agency scrum, but looking at who's still available and who could pop in later, maybe in camp, maybe they're another impact signing that Denver goes out and gets in May, like J.K. Dobbins was last year, or in June. And with tight end still being a position of need, and we could extend this to middle linebacker as well. I know everyone has said their piece about Alex Singleton, whether or not they like him. I've said my piece. I've cooled off a little. Still don't love it. But that's a story for another time. Let's talk about some of these tight ends here as we move into the B block. Of course, if you're new here, my name is Miles. We are the 5th fastest growing podcast here on YouTube. And if you want to help me get to number 1, all you got to do is hit the subscribe button down below, pushing for 450. Would be cool to do it by the end of the month, but who knows? But let's keep some things moving here. So David Njoku was reportedly meeting with the Ravens. I think Yahoo said that he's expected to sign with them, but nothing official has come out of that, and that was, I want to say, like 7 hours ago. So no telling what happens with Njoku. For everything that we know right now, David Njoku was not a Baltimore Raven, right? And he's been a really, really solid tight end for the majority of his career. Had his best season in 2023, was a Pro Bowler that season, 882 yards, 6 touchdowns, but he's had some pretty good years outside of that as well. Like 2018, year after his rookie year, 639 yards right there, 628 and 22, still went for 505, which would have outdone Evan Ingram in this season. And then last year, it was a down year, did only play 12 games, and that 505 only came in 11 games too, by the way, still had 64 catches that season on that. And Njoku's always been a pretty solid blocker. And he is maybe a little up and down, but he is still a decent receiver at the position. We've seen what he can do really at his peak, and he has had, Njoku's been a really, really good tight end, and I think he'd be a pretty solid fit here in Denver, where you get a true inline guy that can still go out and catch passes, can block as well. I do think that Njoku is still a strong option if Denver can't figure out a way to improve, or if they don't draft a guy. If they got to go out and get a guy in May, you can do a lot worse than Njoku if he somehow stays on the market for that long. Another guy kind of in the same sphere, kind of like a David Njoku light, so to speak. And I know we've been making that joke quite a bit here on this show. But he is a little bit, but he is. Not David Njoku, Jonnu Smith, Arthur Smith's favorite player. Started his career in Tennessee, went on to have, a couple of quiet years in New England. Had a couple of nice years between Atlanta and Miami, and I know everyone's going to make the Arthur Smith jokes, but I still think that it's worth talking about here, that he is a guy that could legit come in and do some pretty good stuff. And he was more or less a third-string tight end in Pittsburgh this season, age 30 season, so again, maybe getting a little up there in the NFL aging curve, but still a guy that I think could come in and offer some decent stuff as a tight end too. Jonnu blocks well. A lot of tight ends, they either receive well, they block well, or they do both relatively okay to stick in the league as long as he has. But yeah, played all 17 games. Availability's big. And really, I mean, this is a guy that has had 884 yards. Did it in 2024. With Jaylen Waddle on that roster, with Tua throwing the ball, caught 8 touchdowns that season, and then in Tennessee as well at 448 yards in 2020 and 8 touchdowns there, so he'd be a big body red zone guy that Denver could really use. You can never have enough big bodies in the red zone. You already got Sutton. Why not throw a Jonnu Smith out there for 12 personnel, or even if you want to, say screw it, go 22 personnel. I'm not picky on personnel. I like personnel. And those are really my top 2 that are still left at the tight end position. I don't think there's anyone else that's like super promising. Robert Tonyan maybe, but he hasn't really done fuck all for the last couple of years. Excuse my French, but that's how we phrase it around here. Taysom Hill is a Sean Payton guy. Zach Ertz, old. Will Dissly was a guy that I thought about. I didn't actually go look him up, but Will Dissly is similarly been in the league for a good little while. 29, he'll be 30 when the season starts. Not really much of a receiver. Only played 9 games with the Chargers last season. Less than 100 receiving yards. But the year before that, 481 was a career high. A couple of touchdowns. Again, another guy that's kind of solid blocker, okay receiver. Probably good as I think he'd be an upgrade at tight end too, still over Adam Troutman, one way or another. So those are some guys that are still left at the tight end position. And then to really talk about another need of Denver here, and let's see if I can navigate Spot Track real quick. We can go look at inside linebacker, because that is still something that Denver Are you good? You good? Alright. My dog's okay. we can go look at linebacker here now, because these are some really solid names that are still on the market according to Sport Track. Are we good? All right, hang on one sec. Are you good, bro? What's the deal? What's the deal? Are you good? You're making a lot of dying car-like noises, alright? Are you good now? Are you good? You just trying to hog a loogie or blow your nose, however dogs do that? Sounded like you're stuffed up, man. Good lord. No, you stay laid down. We're not going nowhere. Oy! Dog is okay. I found my headset again. I had my headset on for, like, any of this. But yeah, like, we can look at some of these linebackers that are still on the market. Some guys that I do still think bring some value, even if they are, say, a little up there in age, or maybe they're not the best. I still think that they could serve as an upgrade to come in and at least raise the floor at linebacker. Maybe play a decent linebacker 3. Just something along those lines here. Bobby Okereke, I don't think would be that bad of an option for Denver. Levante David, old as dirt, but I do still think maybe he's got another year in the tank, especially if you brought him in as something more like an LB3. Here, I'll pull this up real quick. Let me find my scene real quick. Yeah, you get like a Levante David. Bobby Wagner is still on the market. Even if he is getting a little more physically limited, I still think he's Bobby Wagner. And then a few other options too. Devin Bush, I don't think would be that bad of an option. Jack Cochran, I think you could do way worse than him. In case he's not going to bring him back, he's probably going to take a little bit too much money. Devin White's still on the market as well. Like, there are still some of these names that Denver could legitimately go out and get to make tangible improvements. And I know that the Jaylen Waddle swing was definitely, like, what kicks off Denver's offseason right now. But there are still some solid names that I think that we should keep an eye on as we move into draft season and, like, into May with the OTAs and everything that comes with that. And then just some other names as well that kind of popped in. Davis Gaither, I don't think he's ever really been that bad, although I don't know how Cardinals fans feel about him. There was somebody else, Jermaine Pratt from Indianapolis, or maybe he got scooped up. But like a Jerome Baker, whose AAV right now, or his market value is under $2 million. These are guys that Denver should really be considering as well. Zach Cunningham has been a solid guy. Shaq Thompson from Buffalo, be a little pricier. Anthony Walker could be a decent get. Just guys like this that would come in, and at this point, I don't think we're asking too much to raise the floor of a position. I did not mean to switch back while we were still right there. Say hello to me. Say hello. But yeah, let's kind of bring it back a little bit as we discuss some of these other names that I think the Broncos could really do well to go out and get. So again, we've talked about linebacker. I would like to re-examine the running back position, and these are guys that are still available that I definitely still think that you could get a lot out of, and someone that would mean a lot to this team in terms of raising the floor. And somebody that I'm surprised didn't get signed, actually, is Brian Robinson from the 49ers. Stepped in, I think, pretty admirably when CMC got hurt. 400 yards on 92 attempts, 4.3 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. The couple of bits that I watched of him, too, were pretty damn solid. Always kind of hovered around that, like, 4.0, 3.9 yards per carry, 6'1", 225 bruiser that I think could come in and just wreck a guy that you could just send up the middle. Almost like a great value Tyler Algier. NFL might be using replacement refs. Oh, boy. We saw how that went down in 2012. Oh, I can imagine that that's going to be a good time. But to kind of come back to this, Najee Harris is still available. And these are really guys that I don't think are going to give you what RJ Harvey already does, because the Broncos, I think, are ridiculously committed to RJ Harvey and his role, and with him being the receiving back, I still think you need to find a decent backup plan to J.K. Dobbins. And what was the name I just had on Spot Check? You know what? I'll keep you guys keyed in right here as we look through some of these names. There was somebody that I was just looking at, but yeah, like B-Rob is a guy that I think could do really well. Michael Carter is an interesting one. I remember him having a really big year with the Jets, it feels like, and then we've just never heard of him since. Yeah, had a really decent rookie season, flipped to Arizona, hasn't really been the same guy, kind of been more of an RB2, seems like he hasn't also played the most games, about 15, 14, yeah. Kind of that range right there. Played 13 this year, started 5. So he has been more of an RB2 type. Maybe not the type of back that Denver goes out and get, but again, you do still, I still feel like you've got to have a better insurance plan for J.K. Dobbins based off of what Harvey gave you in the running game last season, because it wasn't pretty. Again, 3.7 isn't really going to cut it per carry if you ask me. And these are just a couple of names. These are just some things to throw around to consider for a minute as we kind of keep moving through the offseason. I think Denver's goal right now, especially if they're going to go out and sign free agents, they have the floor established. It's the same floor as last season. Now that you've gone out and got Jaylen Waddle and undoubtedly raised the ceiling of this thing, I think now is a good time to really examine what you still got, what holes you still have, because now you don't have a first-round pick. You've only got one pick in the top 100 now after trading 94 to the Dolphins. You do get an earlier fourth-round pick. So essentially, Denver traded for Jaylen Waddle. They traded a first and a third because they got an earlier fourth-round pick now. I think if you're Denver, you need to find a way right now to immediately raise the floor of this roster. I think that has got to now be priority number one. It's been a great show, though. Great show. Appreciate everybody that has shown out. We are going to get out of here. I'm going to work on a few other things as it pertains to content. But if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. We are the 5th fastest growing Broncos channel here on YouTube. I would really appreciate it if we could get to, 450 by April 15th. I think that'd be cool. I think that would be extremely cool. But yeah, with that being said, appreciate each and everybody poking in here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all later today. Peace.